Welcome to the Authentic Living and Loving channel, where we feature stories about individuals that are living to the beat of their own drum, doing things a little bit out of the ordinary, living authentically and inspiring others to do the same. My name is Jordan Alexander, and today we are fortunate to have Aldwyn Altuney, otherwise known as Media Queen, joining us from the Gold Coast in Australia. Hello, Aldwyn.
Hello, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so excited about being here today and chatting with you. Thank you.
Now, Aldwyn, you have had over 35 years experience in TV, radio, print, online media. You do tech webcast, podcast, which has had over 1 million downloads in the last 8 years. You have several online TV shows. You're an inspiration in terms of all of the different projects that you have going on in the public relations space. You've got raising awareness and appreciation for animals. You're promoting good news stories. You've got mass media masters and have these workshops for promoting positive free publicity. It's amazing. You have so many things to share.
Yes, I do, Jordan. There's definitely a lot there, and that's right. 35 years, and I know I don't look much older than 25. Thank you very much. I am actually 45, and I first featured in the media actually at age 10. So I was interviewed by the Manly Daily in Sydney for table tennis. I was an elite junior table tennis player, and I was in the Manly Daily at 10. Then at age 11, I was on Channel 7 on Cartoon Connection. Agro's Cartoon Connection, it was known as back then, and I first did a radio show at age 13, and things went on from there. And I've had 35 years now media experience. Did my first media training too at age 11. I was actually sponsored by the MLC Junior Sports Foundation. I was with a whole lot of other young elite athletes like Joanna Griggs and Jeff Hugel. A whole lot of athletes. So we had our first TV interview training at age 11 too. It was at a sports camp in Narrabeen. I remember it very clearly. So 30 years ago now, gosh. Then I did work experience at the Manly Daily. I did a media degree in Canberra, and I majored in photojournalism and TV production back then. And I worked with APN newspapers, News Limited papers. I've done some TV, radio, print, theatre, film, acting. Really, it's all performance arts, really, to a degree, and it's kind of all similar. Nowadays, I do a lot of public speaking. I run my own events. I speak at other people's events, and that keeps me very busy. And I do PR for people as well. So yeah, it's a very exciting life. It's certainly been a great ride, and I do not feel 45, although I'm loving every minute. Life is very exciting.
Well, you certainly don't look 45 either. So, I'll give you that, definitely. It's been, so you've had all these things that have been crammed into your media life. Did you always want to be in media? What was Little Aldwyn like? And even the name is unique, and I'm sure there's a story behind it. Did you always want to grow up and be a star?
Well, it's a very good question, Jordan. Actually, I grew up and I wanted to be a model as a child. I always used to pose in front of the camera. It was quite funny. I had this really long hair when I was a child, and I used to love posing in front of the camera. And then I used to love taking photos. I actually, I loved the creative aspect of photography as a child. And so as a child, I wanted to be a model initially. And then growing up, I got to about 18, and then I thought, I'm not really sure what I want to do at uni, because it sort of came to the point where, after year 12, we had to decide what course did we want to do at university. And I thought, well, media looks good because it's got a lot of variety within media. There's a bit of radio, there's a bit of photography, there's a bit of film. There was a lot of variety, and I thought, okay, I'll do a media degree. And so I did that in Canberra, and I edited the university newspaper while I was in Canberra. And my fascination for the media expanded then as an editor of the university newspaper, and I started to write about things that I saw in life that angered me, things that upset me, such as animal cruelty. And one of the first stories I wrote was an anti-duck shooting story. And I couldn't believe people were shooting ducks for fun, and they still do that to this day in Victoria and parts of the world. It just absolutely horrifies me. The headline we had back then was "Go and Get Ducked," so it was very in-your-face uni press. And I wrote stories about, battery farming of chickens. I couldn't believe that 4 chickens were fit on one A4 size paper. They put 4 chickens into that space in those factories. And so I was horrified when I started to look into battery farming of chickens. I wrote a story about that, and then I wrote one about female circumcision. I wrote one about the environment and recycling. So whatever it was out in the community that I saw that angered me. And back then there wasn't really social media. Back then it was what I consumed with documentaries and different shows that I'd seen, or things that I'd maybe heard about in magazines. The media was a lot slower moving back then because we didn't have the social media. However, whatever I saw, I would write about that upset me. Going back to when I was 10 and I was interviewed by the Manly Daily, I remember the photographer getting up on a ladder, because we had a table tennis table in our garage in Sydney in North Balgowlah. I remember the photographer getting up on the ladder, taking a photo from the top of the ladder of me with my bat at the base of the table. And I thought, wow, that looks really creative. I'd love to do something like that one day. Right, so I was at 10. So between wanting to be a model and being excited by the media, that's kind of how that journey went. And then interestingly, after I finished university, I came out and wanted to be a graphic designer, would you believe? And I moved from Canberra up to Brisbane. And I applied for over 200 jobs before I got a full-time job in the media, would you believe? It was over about a year and a half, and I was doing about 5 different casual jobs back then. I was about 19, 20 in Brisbane. I was doing part-time writing for music magazines. I was raving time off. I was writing for a publication called Artica. I was doing market research. I was doing event photography part-time. It was all part-time or casual. I was doing telemarketing. I did graphic design a few times. I worked with a few different companies in back then it was using Quark Express, and worked with a printing company, and even went to Toowoomba, worked with the Toowoomba Book. It was a little tourist publication, and then that business folded. I went back to Brisbane, and then I was actually at a table tennis tournament in Brisbane, and I was playing for Brisbane in the Queensland Championships, and there was a guy there from Mackay, and he said, how about journalism? Because I was like, oh no, I want to do graphic design. I was really I was dead set I wanted to do graphic design. He said, how about journalism? I said, yeah, I've done some writing. I've done a bit of writing over time. He said, well, why don't you apply to work with the Daily Mercury in Mackay? And it turned out this guy was the chief of staff, and I think he wanted a good table tennis player in Mackay. But anyway, I applied for the job, and I got it, and I started working as a cadet journalist and started to learn shorthand and started my exciting full-time media journey then with APN newspapers in Mackay. So that was at the Daily Mercury in Mackay. Then I was there for about a year and a half. Then when I went down to the Coffs Harbour Advocate, worked there for about a year and a half. Then I went to Queensland Times in Ipswich, worked there for about a year and a half again. I was about the average. And then satellite newspapers. I moved back to Brisbane, satellite newspapers. I was doing 60 stories a week at one point, writing for 3 different publications in the Centenary suburbs area of Brisbane. And then I got a job at the Gold Coast Bulletin as a sub-editor in 2000. And then that was News Limited now. So from 2000, about 9 months I worked at the Bulletin, and then I worked for 5 years at the Gold Coast Sun. And while there, I was doing all sorts of feature stories, news stories, a lot of entertainment stories as well. I was the entertainment reporter, so I got to interview people like Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe, Cyndi Lauper, Debbie Harry from Blondie. I had some amazing interviews and basically got VIP treatment at all the shows. I would go to all the shows. Every night I would be at a different show or at the movies. I'd be doing movie reviews, CD reviews back then. All that sort of thing. So it was a very exciting life. And while at the Gold Coast Sun in 2002, while I was working as a journalist, I actually set up a photography business on the side. So I'd always done photography for years. I loved it. Did a lot of event photography. So then I started to do a lot of photography on the side while I was working full-time as a journalist. And then when I left that position in July 2005, I left the Gold Coast Sun, and then my business evolved into a media business. So now it's AA Exposé Media. And in that time now, since then, I've worked with small and large companies, coaches, speakers, authors. I love working with social entrepreneurs nowadays. And just recently, I've come on board as the marketing director for Aussie Mega Mall, which is a online store platform that has 32,000 online stores and sells 8 million products. So that's really exciting position there. And I've actually come on board as one of the directors. So it's not just a PR role, it's actually coming on board with the business as well as doing all the other things I'm doing. So it's a really exciting journey. So did I always wanted to be in the media? What was the question? Did I always want to be in the media,
Yes.
Jordan? I always wanted to, I guess, express myself in some way. I guess even if you look at modeling, I wanted to be in front of the camera, and then I got excited about behind the camera. So I guess, I was always drawn to the art form of the media in some way, I guess, if you look at it that way. And of course I love celebrities, and I loved hearing their stories, and what I find with all the celebrities I've interviewed, and with anyone really who's famous in any way, if you think about it, most of them are passionate about what they do. And I think that is the trick to life, is to find something that you're passionate about and follow that with all your heart, no matter what it takes. And that's what I've done. That's really what I've done for most of my life, is I do what I want to do. And sometimes, I thought I wanted to do graphic design. I love the graphic design, but then the opportunity came to write, and I thought, okay, well, I can make a bigger difference with the writing than I can with the graphic design. And then of course now there's a whole lot of people in the Philippines doing graphic design very cheaply, so the whole industry has changed, and the photography industry has changed too, with the advent of digital photography. Of course, has changed the whole world of photography, and that's becoming a lot harder industry to make waves in nowadays. Whereas when I trained, it was in the film days. And I still love photography. I still do some, but it's definitely changed. So you have to sort of move with the times. Now there's social media, so you have to move with the times, I guess, no matter what industry you're in. But the media itself has definitely changed a lot in the last 15, 20 years.
I was going to ask you, because you sort of set out where you didn't really know what was in the camera until you had it developed. And now,
yes.
We've moved so much further in that regards, but also so many of the local newspapers are shutting down. The whole technological change in media has really, in my lifetime, has changed dramatically. We don't cut, articles out of the newspaper anymore to, post on the fridge because our daughters won the table tennis, as it would have been when you were 10. But now it's, you just don't do that. It's on social media. I mean, how do you, as a media professional, see that change and that role of technology? And, how is it affecting society?
Yeah, it's a great question. Gosh, it's affected society in so many ways. I mean, of course, we have cyberbullying now. If you look at it in a negative way, there's cyberbullying that happens now. I mean, there was always bullying in the schoolyard, but now with cyberbullying, it takes things to a whole other level. So that's sort of one of the negative things, I think. On a positive, though, what's fantastic about social media is now people are creating their own news, which is really exciting. We're not just being bombarded by certain media conglomerates, with certain agendas that they're pushing. Now we're able to find out the truth about things a lot easier than we ever could before. For example, things like 9/11, right? 9/11, there's a whole lot of footage on social media that was never shown in the mass media on TV, a whole lot of footage. And if people really look into 9/11 and have a look at some of that footage and some of the other evidence out there of what actually really happened with 9/11. And I'm, not going to give away anything here, but all I'm saying is just do your own research. And this is what I love about the mass media now, is that people are putting their own content up there, which is helping to open people's minds as well, to not just think a certain way because certain agendas are pushed, but actually to share information on a much more rapid and wider scale than ever before. So it's very exciting times like that. On the other hand, there's a lot more online scammers as well, right? As there's a lot. So the online world has opened up a whole lot of online scammers, which you have to be careful of. So I guess, it has its pros and cons. In the world of the media, though, I think it's very exciting because you can get your message out so much further afield. You can connect with people from all over the world. I mean, this technology right now, Zoom, we can connect with people from all over the world with some of these platforms that we never could before. So in some ways, it's kind of bringing the world closer together, I think. And, you know, we're able to make a difference for people in other parts of the world where maybe we couldn't reach them before, you know, or it was a lot harder to reach them. So I think that's very exciting. And I think with newspapers and magazines, yes, there have been some that have shut down, but a lot of them now are going online. And I don't think we're going to be losing magazines in a hurry or newspapers, because people still like to feel that. They still like to look at that. So I think things are just changing in the way that those printed publications are becoming less and smaller, but the advertising packages and the messages are now being shared on their websites, on their social media. So that's, you know, so it might have changed form, but we still need stories all the time. The media are always looking for stories, which is exciting for us. And they're also looking to social media. Traditional journalists are looking to social media a lot more for story ideas, because social media is immediate, right? Whereas magazines and newspapers, you might have to wait a week for the story. So by that time, you know, God knows what's happened on social media by that stage. So social media is immediate, and it's a place where journalists, traditional journalists, are looking all the time for story ideas. So we can now create our own media and our own news that way, as well as creating our own podcast. Podcasting has become massive. Video casts as well. I think videos are fantastic because you know, they say a photo is worth 1,000 words, then a video is worth 1,000,000 words. So a video is very, very powerful, I think, to capture people's stories and to capture, you know, every time you do an interview with someone, you're leaving a legacy, you know, and that's why I love doing my shows as well. I love interviewing people. I love sharing stories, and the media love hearing people's stories too. And the beauty is everyone has a unique story to share. So it's just a matter of allowing themselves to get out with their message and to make a difference, because that is really the power of the media. The power of the media is to be able to leverage your message, to say it once and be able to reach thousands, hundreds of thousands of people by just doing it once. It's kind of like creating a book. You create the book once, you do the work once, and then you can just share it so much wider. So it's very exciting. So yes, it is changing. And if you don't go with the times, if you don't change with the times in business, you know, like Kodak, for example, Kodak kind of, you know, didn't really evolve into the digital world, and, you know, they suffered as a result. So there's, you know, if you don't move with the times in business, and technology is definitely taking over so many industries, not just media, it's impacting so much now, that you really do need to get tech savvy, and you need to understand that world and to be able to adapt in business and in life to stay up to date and to be current in business.
And this is what part of your work is about, isn't it? I mean, you're helping people. I mean, I am so tech non-savvy, really. And I know that when I went to one of your sessions about the free publicity, I mean, not just for me, but even people that know a little bit, they learn so much more. Because it is an area that, as you say, if you don't stay with the, you know, keep up with the times, and just your insights over the last, you know, more than 3 decades, you have all these really cool stories. And I wonder whether or not you have like a funny one, or like what was the craziest, funniest thing that you did at work, or somebody that you interviewed, or a story, or maybe it's something embarrassing. I just want to get some dirt on you, you know, like give me some good stuff.
Gosh, you know, one of the most embarrassing moments, I think, was when I was working as a telemarketer. Actually, this isn't really related to media. I was working as a telemarketer for a roofing company in Brisbane when I was 20 odd. And I remember, you know, we had these huge lists of people that we had to call all the time. And it was the same script every time. It was like, hello, Mrs. Smith, what's the condition of the roof on your house? Right. So I said that again and again, you know, hello, Mr. Johns, what's the condition of the roof on your house? I remember this one time I said, hello, Mrs. Smith, what's the condition of the roof on your head? I just absolutely, I totally lost. I thought, okay, this is obviously the end of my telemarketing days. This is just not working for me. And I'd lose my voice, you know, every month consistently. I'd lose my voice. It was just ridiculous. I just did not enjoy telemarketing. But because I had the title marketing in it, I thought, well, maybe this will be good for me in some way. And I was always a hard worker, I guess. So that I remember that being a very funny moment in the world of telemarketing. I remember interviewing Hugh Jackman and Claudia Carvin face-to-face when they did Paperback Hero. That was back in 2003. And I remember being very excited by that interview, and Hugh Jackman is absolutely adorable, and Claudia was amazing as well. And I remember talking star signs with them, as you do in an interview. I love people's star signs. And I remember Hugh was a Libra and Claudia was a Taurus. I still remember now. I still remember their star signs. So that was a buzz. And just some of the interviews I did, you know, like with Cyndi Lauper. You know, I asked Cyndi Lauper, you know, why does she have a tattoo of a jaguar on her body? And she said, well, her grandma always wore leopard skin, and she thought it'll never go out of date, right? So that was one of her responses for that. Russell Crowe, I remember he said one part of the job he doesn't enjoy is paparazzi chasing him up the street as he's scratching his ass, you know, things like that. You know, there's just funny little things, segments that maybe might not have made it into interviews, but interesting things that I asked some of these celebrities.
Yes.
And you know, all these celebrities, there's three things they all have in common. One is they're very passionate. I mentioned that before, very passionate about what they do. The second thing is that they all have a third party marketing them. They all have somebody else promoting them to the media, which always makes you look better if you have the budget for that. And the third thing that they all have in common is they've hardened themselves to criticism. Because if you think about celebrities now, there's always going to be people that love them and people that hate them. You know, I mean, look at Donald Trump, for example. There's people that love him and there's people that hate him. You know, any celebrity you can think of, that people love you and people will hate you. You're going to get that divide. So how are you going to be in those moments? Now, some celebrities have crumbled under pressure. You know, they've not been able to handle it, as we've seen over time. Yet the ones that do survive and make it in the industry, they don't let that get to them. They don't let that criticism get to them. They stand true in their truth. They stand true to themselves and what they're out to do. And you know, they don't let that shake them. So, I mean, I know we all want to be liked, but also I think you also need to realize you can't please everyone out there, and not everyone is going to like you, and some people will be jealous, and that's just their stuff that comes up. So the main thing is for you to stand in your truth, in your light, and, you know, you can then shine that light on others around you who are open to that. And those that are close to that and want to be in victim mode in life, well, I guess they stay in victim mode, you know. But I think really we're all here for a reason, and we all have an amazing message to share. And we go through all our ups and downs and challenges so that we can grow and evolve in life. And I think it's a matter of embracing the challenges, learn from them, and stay true to what it is that you really want to do. And I think if you just stay true to yourself, then that won't shake you.
Yeah, it is really good advice. I mean, even though, you know, it's a movie star context, but really what you're saying is relevant to, you know, to all of us, really. You know, I mean, staying true, being passionate, not you know, listening to those criticisms. I mean, what do you do now? I mean, have you just got a really thick skin now and you're totally cool with it? Or, you know, I mean, were you always this confident? Or, you know, how do things do things still rock you? Or do you just have a total tool of you know, managing this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've actually done a lot of personal development work over the years. I've actually had depression in the past. I've had 4 friends take their own lives between the age of 31 and 45. And I do get emotional about that still sometimes, because about 1 million people a year across the world take their own lives, and clearly cannot handle not just criticism from others, but their own self-criticism, you know, the conversations that they have with themselves. You know, it only takes one dark moment for someone to want to take their own life. And I've been in that state. I was actually quite an angry child because I saw a sheep that I befriended, this beautiful big sheep in Turkey, get killed in front of me, had its throat cut in front of me when I was 6. And what it was actually a Greek Orthodox tradition where they sacrifice a sheep when family come from a long way away. They kill the sheep and they feed the meat to the poor village people. But as a 6-year-old, I didn't know that. So after doing personal development, I realized that this situation that happened when I was 6 years of age actually made me very angry with the world, and I lost my innocence in that moment, and I didn't want to be in the world for a long time. And so table tennis was great for me to actually release some aggression, because I heard many years later that depression is anger turned inwards. My dad always said to me, anger is danger. So I always had trouble expressing my anger. And so I found sport was really good for that. Table tennis was brilliant for me to express that. Then I did poetry and I did pictures. You know, I released it creatively as well. So after years of personal development, now when someone says something to me that maybe is not nice or whatever, I just actually look at that and say, well, I actually deflect it. I don't take it on board now. I used to take it on board and wanting to be liked by everybody and want user. And nowadays, if someone's nasty to me, I just realize now that hurt people, right? And so if someone's saying something nasty to me, I realize that they're most likely hurting, right? And I actually empathize with that person, and I will actually send them love. And you know, everyone's on their own journey, you know, and if someone, I can't control if someone's going to be nasty to me or not like something I say. In fact, it's very natural, and I'm sure there will be people that don't agree with everything we say, and that's perfectly okay. You know, everyone's in their own space, but the main thing is to not let that criticism affect you and affect what you're doing. Don't let it stop you. So I do have strategies now where I don't take it on board. If someone's nasty, I will just think, well, hurt people, and you know, and I'll actually often ask that person, are you okay? You know, is everything okay with you? And you know, I actually sometimes I reach out and I try and help that person, but you know, people have to want to be helped too, I guess. And I think really in life, it's either you're coming from a love space or you're coming from a fear space. So if someone's being nasty, they're probably fearing something. You know, maybe they're fearing that, you know, people get jealous, right? They fear that, okay, if you stand up, it's going to make them not look so good if they're not standing up in life, and they're going to feel insecure about what they're doing and where they're at. You know, so I guess your environment is really, really important too, you know, and I've had to really work on having a, you know, a great environment around me, having fantastic people around me. I think that's really important to keep me playing a big game in life. I do a lot of work with landmark education. I'm doing a seminar at the moment called Excellence in the Zone, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not some personal development, and staying positive and staying on track is an ongoing thing. It's kind of like you don't go to the gym once and suddenly you're fit, right? You need to constantly work on your mindset and work on, you know, work on being focused on your goal and working towards your goal all the time. Otherwise, you know, our natural state, I would say, as human beings is actually to be probably lazy, right? Probably to be lazy. Probably if you look at it in the caveman days, you know, we'd go out, we'd pick some berries, the guys would go hunting, then we'll come back to the camp and we might do a bit of dancing and a bit of song and then have some sex and then go to bed. You know, that's probably how life was meant to go, you know, originally back in the day, or if we're in the bush. But, you know, the way we live life now, there's a lot of pressures on people, you know, financial pressures, emotional, mental pressures, and you need to have strategies and be able to deal with that. And you need to, a lot of it I think is to have that self-love and be caring and nurturing for yourself, and also taking time out for yourself when you do have a busy life, when you're taking a lot on. Like, for example, yesterday I went for a 9-kilometer walk on the beach and I went body surfing. It is starting to get cold on the Gold Coast, but I make time for that. I also did Pilates. I did some Pilates. I hopped in a sauna. You know, I have these times when I take time out, or I'll meditate, or, you know, if I'm feeling tired, then I'll just take some time out and I'll just relax for a bit. So I think listening to your body too, because your health is so important. You know, your health is so important. Without your health, you have nothing. And we're walking around like billion-dollar machines. I mean, think about it. If we lost a lung or a you know, how much is our body worth really? If we wanted to replace parts of our body, we're worth a hell of a lot of money, and we don't treat our bodies like that we're worth $1 billion or more. You know, we are remarkable machines. You know, by being alive, by being fully functioning, we have so much to be grateful for. And I think we need to nurture that and look after ourselves to make the most of life. I want to go back to just what your previous question about any funny moments in the media. There was a situation also when I was working at the Queensland Times. I just want to share because it's coming to my mind. I was working at the Queensland Times as a journalist, and at that time in the Ipswich area, there's a lot of crime, and it's a hardcore kind of area. It's not the best area in Brisbane. And at the time, I was actually going on my way to a job with the photographer in the car to to a job with someone who'd been robbed, and we heard on the police scanner there was a massive accident on the Cunningham Highway, and we were only 5 minutes from this situation when we heard the police scanner. So we diverted the route, we changed the job, went straight out to where this accident was. And what happened is there was a semi-trailer with this huge train bogies on the back of the semi-trailer that had tipped and landed on a car with an elderly couple trapped inside the car. So this train bogie had landed on top of the car, and this couple were flattened in the car. The whole seat had fallen to the ground. They'd flattened. And we arrived at the scene before the ambulance, before any of the police had arrived, because we just happened to be near the scene. And we went up, and it was horrifying, because I could see an arm sticking out the side of the car. And then soon after that, the ambulance did arrive, and they started to talk. The people were alive. Remarkably, they survived, but it took hours for them to lift these bogies off the couple and to actually free them. Amazingly, they were in their 80s. This couple amazingly survived. But see, situations like that for journalists, it can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder if you're not careful. Sometimes you can report on some pretty heavy stuff that can be hard to deal with sometimes, to see people, near to death, or potentially, some horrific traumatic scenes, to be able to not just write about that, be able to deal with that emotionally and mentally afterwards is very challenging. And a lot of journalists actually do have post-traumatic stress disorder. They've actually had people counselling journalists around that sort of thing, particularly if they're going out to the Middle East and war zones, and the foreign correspondent type reporters, they would deal with all sorts of horrific things and put their life on the line. So that kind of thing can happen at any moment, and it's a very emotional situation to be on the scene, where really when I arrived on that scene, there was no one really to interview other than the truck driver, who was completely shaken. And so I had to really wait until the police had finished what they're doing, the ambulance had finished, and then I had to interview the ambulance and the police officer later. But as for people on the scene, if there's any witnesses, you can see if there's any witnesses, but the truck driver was completely shaken and couldn't really say anything. So then to pull a story out of that and make something out of that is an interesting experience. And sometimes journalists do get facts wrong. Some people said there were 4 train bogies. Some people said there were 5 train bogies in the media. There was different reports coming out about it. But there's a lot of pressure on journalists to be able to report on something like that. And of course that needed to go in the paper the next day. So I had to get that story happening within a few hours to get that ready for the next day's paper. So you
don't even really have enough time to process it yourself, really, and
yes.
and then you're on to the next one too, as you were saying, in
yes.
At one point you were 60 stories a week and just kind of keep going and going and going, but you kind
yes.
of you decided, I guess recently, enough with the bad stories. I mean, people always say, bad stories sells papers, but you're into good news, and I read your book, Inspiring Good News, in the Elevate Your Mindset book, which I've tagged in so many different places because it's such a good read. But how did you basically decided one day you're going to invent Global Good News Day? What up there, Aldwyn?
Yes. Well, what I realized is that a lot of the depression that I was seeing in society, and a lot of the suicide even, was as a result of negative news. And as a child, even growing up, my dad would always have the news on, and it was always negative. The headline news was always negative. You might get one positive story at the end of the news. But what I started to realize is that it was affecting people's state of mind, and people were losing hope in life, in living, and in the world at large. And so when people lose hope, they can turn into like zombies in a way. It's kind of like, sometimes I look outside and I see people walking around like zombies that hate their jobs. They're doing 9-to-5 jobs they hate. They can't wait till Friday. They dread Mondays, and that's it's survival mode, but it's not thriving. It's not really enjoying life. And what I really want for people is to fully enjoy their life. So last year, actually, I did a course with Landmark Education. It was called the Self-Expression Leadership Program. And as part of this program, I was actually coaching on it. And there were 5 people that I was coaching in that program. As part of that program, it's about a 4-month course, I also part of my task was to do something that I was passionate about in the community. And when I did this course in 2007, I set up the world's first Animal Action Day, and that was to raise awareness, appreciation, and respect for animals. And I've since done 12 annual events, raising money for different charities and literally millions of dollars worth of media exposure for different animal charities. And this time around, I thought, well, I want to do something in the area of news. And I thought, I've heard of this, bad news sells, and if it bleeds, it leads, all this sort of thing. And I thought, that's just not true. And I started to look into it a bit more. And the biggest selling book of all time is the Good News Bible. And I thought, what has happened? What has happened? And I'm not saying I'm religious. I mean, I was brought up Christian. I do believe in a higher source, a God energy out there. I think people just give it different names and different stories. I won't really get into religion, but the Good News Bible is the biggest selling book of all time, and people are drawn to the light. They're actually repelled by negativity naturally, right? People are drawn to positivity. They're drawn to positive people. So why is it that there's this so much negative news in the mainstream news? And I thought, well, I think the powers that be, this is my opinion, the powers that be, I believe, want people to live in fear, and they want people to live small lives so that they can control people. And there's actually been, over the last few years, there's been a bit of a good news movement. And I thought, okay, so part of my project with this self-expression leadership course, I thought I'm going to do a good news day. And I thought, it's the 8th of the 8th, 18 last year. I set this up early in the year, 8th of the 8th, 18. I thought, what a great day for a good news day. So I set up a good news day, and there's actually a page on Facebook. And on this day, and in fact, every day, I inspire people to share some good news. And there's so much good news that we can share, and there's so much we can be grateful for. So it's really to combat the whole idea that bad news sells, and to inspire people to share more good news to help lift people's spirits. And so that if people are happier with their lives, they're going to be kinder to themselves, they're going to be kinder to others, and they're going to make the most of their life, because really life is so damn short. I've lost 8 friends in the last year from different causes, most of them under the age of 60. And the older you get, the more you see people dying around you, and you think, gosh, what's this all about? If you're not living your love and loving your life, then what the hell are you doing? You want to really make the most of it at any moment. Last Saturday, I went to the Stunt Academy here on the Gold Coast, and I did some high falls. I'd never done high falls before. I fell from 5 meters and 7 meters into an airbag. And some people might think that's absolutely crazy. And, there was fear there, but I faced the fear. I went through it. I challenged myself, and it was a real buzz, and I kept going back for more. So, whatever it is that you want to do, whoever's watching this now, anything you want to do, I inspire you to, encourage you to just go and do it. Just start somewhere. And, anything that anyone is good at one point, they were bad at one point, right? So it's just a matter of overcoming that initial fear, taking some steps towards whatever it is you want to do, and then keep going with it. Keep going and keep true to yourself on what you want to do. If money wasn't an issue, what would you love to do? So so that's a little bit of that journey.
So when you were writing, whether it was the chapter for this book or coming up with a new project with the good news, or, developing the webinars, I mean, each of those areas you needed to, you felt the fear and did it anyway. Is there anything that is there a bit of a process or anything you could share with others? Because it's just that first step sometimes, and people might be listening to your story and think, oh, it was fine for her, look at her, and she's got all this experience and she's done all these really cool things, but it can't work for me. So how would you, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that was sort of in that state?
Yeah, good question. Well, okay, the first thing is to notice when you do have fear and anxiety, and that it's perfectly natural if you do feel some fear and anxiety around something. So if I go back to the high fall situation, when I went to do the high fall, so initially as I'm standing on the edge of this platform and I can see the airbag down below me, initially there's some jitters happening, right? There's a bit of trepidation, a bit of fear around it. And then for me personally, what I did is I just took a deep breath. So I find taking deep breath really can calm the nerves, right? Take a deep breath. And I just said to myself, you got this, you'll be fine, right? So then reframe any sort of negative comments that might pop up, reframe, then turn it into a positive light. Because if you're thinking, oh, I could fall off the corner of the airbag, or I could, I might land head first and break my neck, or if you think those kind of things, that's definitely not going to help, right? So you want to be as positive as possible. So I think the first thing is to notice the anxiety, notice the fear coming up, and be okay with it. Just breathe your way through it. Just go, okay, I'm feeling a little bit of fear here, and that's okay. Because it's really when you move through the excitement that you grow in life, right? So move through that fear. So personally, I just took some deep breaths, and then I thought positive thoughts. I thought, you'll be fine. It's not a problem. You'll be right. Okay. So and then I just went, right, 1, 2, 3, go. Right. And so sometimes you just need to just take the plunge. Just take the plunge. And sometimes, and I did think strategically, okay, I need to land on my back. I need to land, somewhere between my shoulders and my butt is the best place to land. You don't want to be landing sitting down or landing on your head, obviously. So you need to be conscious of that too. There might be some skills involved that you need to learn. But it's just a matter of taking the first step, and then it becomes easier and easier. And I actually got a real buzz out of it, as I said, and I just kept going back, and I went off forwards, landing on my back, and then I actually went off backwards as well, which was backwards was a little bit scarier, but again I just breathed through it, and I said, right, you'll be right, 1, 2, 3, go. And that's it. So I guess the strategy for people: notice the fear, breathe through it, and then tell yourself you got it, you got this, right? And if you need to think positive thoughts or think about things that you've done in the past where you've achieved beyond diversity, or you've achieved things where you didn't think you could achieve it, maybe get yourself into a positive state of mind, and then just take the first step. Just take the first step towards whatever it is you want to do, and break those steps down. Sometimes, things can seem like a massive task if you think of a massive goal. So just break it down. Okay, what's the first thing I can do towards this goal? And then you do need to believe in yourself. I think you really do need to also love yourself. You need to be kind to yourself, and you need to realize that you are amazing, and that you can do and be and have whatever you want in life. And I think sometimes we just make life harder for ourselves. And I think some people just love to live in drama. I think even we're conditioned by the media to live in drama. I mean, look at all the dramas that we get on TV, on pay TV, or, it's a drama after drama. And life doesn't have to be a big drama. And someone said to me the other day, they said, we are human beings, which we've probably heard this before. We're human beings. We're not human doings and human havings. And if you think about the plants, right, the plants don't have to try hard. Flowers don't have to try hard to grow, or to have a beautiful scent. Trees don't have to try hard to grow and battle through things. They just naturally do. They naturally are extraordinary. And so are we as human beings. We're naturally extraordinary. So it's a matter of just recognizing that, and recognizing that you can have anything you want. You can be, do, have anything you want. And it starts with how you're being in life. So if you're being scared and being fearful, you're not going to be able to take the plunge, so to speak. So if you're coming from a loving space, being loving to yourself and trusting source energy or God or whatever, I think that's also important. Trust. And, if you think of Oprah often says, God, let me be your vessel, let me be, who you want me to be. So trusting, if you do believe in a God or a higher source, trusting that as well, and allowing that guidance, that spiritual guidance, even to give you that extra strength as well. I do believe in that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really great advice. And I think everyone, when we let ourselves, we can hear it, and we can follow it, and it feels instinctive, intuitive. But we do get inundated with so much noise, whether it's in the media or people telling us what we should or shouldn't do. And, either having supportive people around or people that are, oh, it'll never work. And I think it's kind of almost having a little, bit of that inventory to see, is this actually, authentic to what I know is true in my heart. And it's listening to those things, as you say, however you get those messages, to stick with them and believe in those, as you have done. And who knows, with this stunt training, maybe we'll be seeing you in some action films next.
Well, you never know. You never know. Actually, I did feature in the anti-ice TV commercial in 2015. People can see that on YouTube. Actually, I actually did a bit of a stunt in that, where there was an ice addict that walked into a hospital with two police officers either side, and then he got in a fight with the officers, and he headbutted a nurse, and then he grabbed a chair and he smashed this glass. And I actually played in that ad. I played the nurse behind the glass that got smashed with the chair. So that was a really scary scene. So I have kind of done a little bit of semi-stunt work in movies, but yeah, who knows where things can go there. I must say I did enjoy it. And it's, you know, it's like ropes courses and things like that. Anything where you can challenge yourself and step out of your comfort zone, it can be really transformational, you know, actually taking on a new adventure. You know, like I've done skydiving, for example. I did skydiving in Hawaii last year, the year before. Anyway, I did skydiving, and I remember signing all the, especially in Hawaii, you know, America's so worried about getting sued about things. And I must have signed about 20 times. You know, you can die by doing this, you know, by falling out of this airplane, you know, you can die, you know, you can die. Yes, I totally acknowledge, yes, I can die by doing this. Potentially, I could die, or I could seriously injure myself, but I still did it anyway, right? Because I wanted the buzz. I wanted to feel, it was on my bucket list. I wanted to experience skydiving. And so I did, and it was only 5 minutes in the sky, but it was the most exhilarating thing. I just absolutely loved it. And, you know, that's living, you know, that's living, is having these amazing experiences where, you know, yeah, I mean, some people might say, there's no way I'd ever do that. And sure, you take a risk. You know, everything is a risk. We could all die tomorrow, right? With anything we do. So why not make the most of it? And why not push yourself and challenge yourself to do something that maybe you've never done before? You know, go swimming.
You know, everyone's challenges are different. They're all, it's all relative, right? What you find,
Yes.
you know, walk in the park could be very, very, you know, you're constantly speaking in front of people. You're always out there at the front of a room, or, you know, so for you, you know, that's normal. But for somebody who doesn't like public speaking, their jumping out of a plane would be doing a speech or something, you know?
Sure.
But
Yes.
you are so inspirational in all of the areas that you've covered today. You know, you've talked about, you know, your own career and growing and stretching and constantly, you know, sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey talks about, you know, making sure that you're continuously learning and those sorts of things. I mean, if people are keen to work with you, to hear more about the business side, you know, they know a little bit more about you, Aldwyn, as a person, and what sort of services might you offer somebody, whether you're an entrepreneur or somebody who's publishing a book, or, you know, that anything sort of, you know, what are the services that you offer that could help others to do the great things in their lives?
Sure. Thank you, Jordan. Well, basically what I do is I help people get free publicity and share their message with the masses, right? Using social media, using mass media. So I do workshops on how to gain $1 million worth of free publicity. And I've been doing them in Melbourne, Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane over the last few years. And I have a recording also of my workshop for those that don't live in Australia or can't make a physical workshop. I also have a professional recording of one of my workshops, which is only $97, so people can connect with me to get that. And I outline all my steps to getting free publicity, to getting featured on TV, radio, in print, without paying thousands of dollars for advertising. So it really is an invaluable thing to be able to get free publicity, because not just does it boost your credibility and trust out in the community, but you're able to impact the community at large. You can grow your business like never before. You know, people are so time poor nowadays. So using the media effectively to leverage yourself is really, really crucial. And you leave a legacy with every media spot that you get. So what I do is I do these workshops that train people in how to get free publicity. And I can also do PR for people as well. If they would like that service, they can connect with me and we can chat about that. I only take a select few clients on board with the done for you service, where I'll actually come on board like a marketing manager for people and actually manage their whole campaign. But if people are on a budget, then the best thing is to either get a copy of my recording or come along to one of my workshops for $97. And that $97 includes a revisit pass. They can come back to any other workshop of the same title as well in future. So it's a really low cost way to get some amazing ideas and to get clear on your story and the gems of your story. I go into a lot of detail there. It's a very intimate group usually at the workshops, usually up to about 10 people, and we go into quite a bit of detail with each person about their story and about some different angles that they can go out to the media with, how to package up those angles, how to get the media's attention, how to stand out from the noise, all that sort of thing. So really it's helping people get free publicity and share their message, product or service with the masses through the mass media. So using traditional media, TV, radio, print, and also online media, podcasts, online news channels, etc. So it's really about helping people share their message. And that also involves people getting clear on their message. A lot of people are not clear on what it is that they really want to do or what they want to focus on. So I help with that as well. And I can help people with branding, with getting clear on their branding if they're going to be doing public speaking, or what is the story behind the story of what they're doing. So this is the trick to getting free publicity. Really, the number one tip I can say is it needs to be not commercial. Media are looking for stories every single day. They're looking for new stories from people. And if you're going to pitch a widget, it's going to be seen as too commercial. You need to look for what is the story behind the widget, right? Because it's really the stories that the media are looking for and new angles on whatever it is you're doing. So for example, there's a company I worked with in Brisbane called Root Barrier. And root barriers, there's these massive plastic barriers that are put around houses to stop the tree roots from coming in under the house and cracking the foundation of the house. Now, the guy that runs that, Alan Coulton, now if he was to go directly to the media and say, I've got this root barrier thing I want to promote, they would say, just go out and take an ad out, which would cost him thousands of dollars, right? We're targeting the journalists. What we did is we said root barriers save trees and protect buildings. So we're looking at the bigger story about how does this affect the environment at large. And when we did the press release for that, also the Al Gore film Inconvenient Truth had just come out. There was global warming concerns, etc. So we're saying, well, this is a great way to help protect the environment. So it was a unique solution on something that was a concern to the masses, which was the environment. The environment, protecting the trees was a big concern. Here's a unique solution with these root barriers. So it's something that's of great service to the community. So really looking for the story behind the story is really crucial when you're getting media exposure. And I'd love to help people with that. I also do an online show, or a few online shows. I've got Media Queen TV on YouTube as well, which I do a lot of interviews on that. I love to share people's stories on that. Tech Webcast is another show that I co-host, which is technology based. I do that with two other guys from Victoria and one from America. That's the power of technology. I've been co-hosting that show for a few years now, and I've never met the other co-hosts. So how's that? That's amazing, the power of technology. And I do a lot on social media. So really passionate, as we said before, about getting more good news stories out in the mass media. I'm working on a book called Good News Sells at the moment as well. So Good News Sells, how to gain over $1 million worth of positive free publicity. And I think that's going to be awesome too when that comes out. I've had a few pre-sales already of that book. So that's due out later this year. Good News Sells. I've got a Facebook page for that as well. So really it's about helping people get clear on their message and getting it out there and saving the money in advertising. Now the beauty is too of free publicity, it's worth 3 to 8 times more than what people will pay for advertising. So a lot of people that do advertising campaigns are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for advertising, whereas the journalists are doing free stories all the time for people once people know how to package up what they do and present it in a way that the journalist is going to like what they deliver. So that's really my focus.
I've seen you presenting before, Aldwyn, and I mean, I just learn so much every time I hear you talk about this stuff, because it's not, I haven't done it for 35 years. You've done it for 35 years, and I think that it's, people are always talking about, you buy the best advice that you can afford, and it's not just for legal and accounting, especially in business. And especially if you're passionate about your project and you're pouring in tons and tons and tons of time. Like I never would have thought of the, the angles for the root guy. I'm a business strategist, but I would have not in a million years. And so that initial, you think, oh, maybe shouldn't I? You bloody should, because the reality is that you start to look at things in a slightly different way, because I wasn't trained in it. I haven't spent the time at it. It'll take me a while to learn and develop those skills, but I have to learn from an expert. And you're clearly, you've been there, done that. And I love the philosophy that you've got, the approach, you're very grounded, very authentic. You're a heart-centered business, and it just oozes from you. And so who wouldn't want to work with, along with somebody, especially when you're taking those tentative steps in an area that you're not familiar in. So, I mean, I think, people would be lucky to work with you. Really. You're phenomenal.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I do love what I do. Absolutely. And it definitely shows. And, it's exciting waking up, and exciting, I'm doing 2 speaking gigs this week at other people's events. I'm running 3 events myself in the next month. I've got 2 meetup events I run. One's called Mass Media Masters, and one's called Gold Coast Business Laughter Club. And the Laughter Club is a full charity event I do to decrease depression and anxiety amongst business people. And we have a whole lot of comedians there. And I have a comedy act too called the Fiddly Gigglers. So I do a comedy act as part of that, which is a whole lot of fun, with a lady called Tracy Corman. And it's a great life. I must say I'm very blessed and grateful for the life I have created. And, some people say to me, Aldwyn, you're so lucky. You're so lucky to be doing all this stuff. And I go, no. We create our own luck. No, there's no such thing as luck. Or, some people say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. We create the lives we want to lead. And, sometimes it takes something to get that going. I mean, I am a hard worker, I would say. I do work, I do work long hours sometimes. And, but at the same time, I know how to relax and take time out when I need to as well, so I don't burn myself out, because a lot of people do just burn themselves out. And I know a lot of journalists that I've known over the years, a few of them have actually died in their early 60s from cancer and different things, just because of the stress of the job. So journalists are really busy people, and that's the beauty, is that we can put ourselves out there as experts in a field. You can put yourself out there as an expert, and they will absolutely love you. If journalists know that you know what you're doing when it comes to getting media exposure, they will just keep coming back to you, and media feed off other media. And even if you may not be the top expert in your field right now, it doesn't matter, because the media, journalists will often have several experts on their books, because if they can't reach the top expert at one point, they will go to the second or the third expert on their books to be able to do a story. So, for example, with Aussie Mega Mall that I worked with a few years ago, I got them on Channel 7, Channel 9. They were online stores online, basically, in Australia. It was 2016 I worked with them. They had 3,000 stores at the time, and now 3 years later they've got 32,000 stores and 8 million products. Now, a year after Channel 9 first did a story, then when Amazon started to come out with what they were doing, they called up stores online to get comment, and they did a 2-minute news story, which is worth a lot of money, 2 minutes on mainstream news about what does Aussie Mega Mall think of Amazon, for example. So they knew that this is an online store company that could comment on this. So that's what can happen, is you once the journalist knows you and they're looking for an expert, they'll come back to you. So it's exciting. Once you start getting the media, it can just blossom.
That's so cool. It's really, I mean, the sky is really the limit.
Yes,
Aldwyn,
absolutely.
If people want to get in touch with you, you're all over social media, and they can put your name in, Aldwyn Altuney. They can go into Media Queen. Facebook, probably the easiest way, do you think? Or is there some easy way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, probably best on social media. I mean, I'm on Facebook, Twitter at Aldwyn, LinkedIn, Aldwyn Altuney. It is a unique name. I've got Greek, Turkish, Ukrainian blood, for those wondering. And you did ask about my name earlier. And Aldwyn means old one or old friend. And I was named after a dear friend of my parents who was a Welsh lady. It's actually a Welsh name, who was called Aldwyn. And my mum was 8 months pregnant to me at the time, and this lady died at that point, so they gave me her name. So hence Aldwyn Altuney. So it's amazing. And I love my parents, by the way. I have a great relationship with my parents now, but it was very strained for years after that sheep incident. And thankfully, with all the personal development work I've done, I've been able to resolve that with them. And now we have the most extraordinary relationship. So very grateful for my family now. So Instagram, Aldwyn Altuney _media queen. Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Media Queen TV, Pinterest. I'm also on Pinterest, Aldwyn Altuney. I'm on, Skype, WhatsApp, all those sort of things too. But best way probably is through Messenger to contact me on Facebook. I've got 3 profiles on Facebook. But if you just look up Aldwyn Media Queen, you'll find me. And for anyone that wants to be updated with the events that I'm running, Mass Media Masters with an S at the end, Mass Media Masters, there's a Facebook group that I list all my events on there. So it's best to hop on that group. And for anyone that's in Meetup or is in the local area as well, I've got the Mass Media Masters Gold Coast Meetup group and also the Gold Coast Business Laughter Club on Meetup. The best thing, just search Aldwyn Media Queen and you'll find me, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I love that. I've got a great interview with Jordan that you can check out. We did a fantastic interview recently on the truth about love and how to spot online dating scammers. So make sure you check that out. That was an awesome interview, Jordan. And there's a lot out there. I'd love to connect with you. And of course on Good News Day as well, for anyone that wants to support Good News Day, just go facebook.com/The Good News Day. And I also have the Good News Sells book that will be coming out. So the Good News, I've got about 20 different Facebook pages, but on any of my profiles, if you just go, you can actually see on the left, it says Aldwyn, the pages I manage, you'll see a whole list of them. There's about 20 different pages. And with the PR strategies too, with the PR strategies I teach, they work for people anywhere in the world. I've got clients that are in Holland, the UK, US. I've got a mass media mastery program as well. And they work for people anywhere in the world. The main thing is to get clear on your story and what it is that you want to put out there. Then you need to package it up effectively, and then you need to pitch it effectively. And you've only got 45 seconds to pitch your message to media. So you need to be really clear and concise with that. And for anyone who wants a copy of my recording as well as a previous workshop, then just message me on Messenger and I can organize that for you. It's just $97 and you can get 2.5 hours of edited professional content of a workshop where I outline my power steps to getting publicity. There is a lot to it to cover in. There's not really time to cover it all now, but you would all have a story. Everyone has a story. And I think really the more you can step up with the story, the more people you can impact, the more you can do for your families, for your loved ones by stepping up and by sharing your message, and the more you can share love in the world and help to brighten up the world around us. Because I think what the world needs now is love, more love. And Jordan, you're in the right field for the love game. That's what they need. Come from love, share love, and live your love. Really, that's really what it's about. And be the best version of you that you can be. And I think when people get media exposure, they definitely feel the love. They definitely feel more confident in what they do, and they feel more inspired and more excited about their lives too. It's an interesting thing when you see yourself in the media. There's a certain buzz that happens when you see yourself in the media that can't really be replicated. So I encourage people to definitely do that, to step up with your message and to shine your light bright and light up those around you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aldwyn, for sharing a bit about your life story, some of your tips, not only for work, but also for living authentically. And this is what it's all about, for each of us to, as you say, to shine their light and to inspire others. And for our viewers, thank you so much for joining us on the Authentic Living and Loving channel. And if you have a story to share that will inspire others, we'd love to hear from you. So until we meet again, thank you again, Aldwyn. And I'm Dr. Jordan
Thank you.
Alexander, encouraging to you to join the UBU revolution. Let's all live a life that we don't need a vacation from.
Love it. Thank you, Jordan. Bye.
Bye.